This is Tom Edmondson, and I have Elizabeth Anderson with me here at the 10th Voice on 90.1 FM, KKFI, Kansas City. And today we have a very special mom with an award-winning foundation. The foundation is based around her son, Sean, who is a victim of a hate crime. We will hear her story, Sean's story, and talk about the foundation with her today. Elke Kennedy, welcome to the 10th Voice.
Thank you very much for having me this evening.
I know you were very proud of Sean and what you did, or what he did, and you have to know how proud he would be of a mom and what you're doing with the foundation that bears his name.
I'm definitely proud that I had a son like Sean. I think any mother could be proud to know that they have a child that is out there helping people even at a young age. I do know that, he is with me every time I speak, and people tell me all the time that he's proud of me, and I think if he could say something, he would probably say, "Keep going, Mom."
So let's start talking about Sean and some of the stories about him growing up, and I hear he was a typical teenage boy. Tell us about Sean.
Oh, yeah. Well, let's put it this way. Sean was the kind of person that when he heard music, he had to dance and sing. He played instruments like the alto sax and actually pretty much anything that he could pick up, the clarinet, the piano. If he would hear a song on the radio, he could just go to an instrument and play it. So he had, it was just this really knack for music. He was a drum major in his junior and senior year of high school, which, that was just right down his alley because he could dance and direct and sing at the same time. For him, it was really more important that his friends had a place to stay. I don't know if you're aware, but over his teenage years, there were many evenings when I came home, and I had 10, 15 kids sleeping on my living room floor. And when I asked Sean who these kids were, he said those were his friends. After Sean's murder, I found out that those were people that he had met downtown Greenville that had been thrown out by their parents, and they were living in the streets, and he gave them a place to sleep for the night.
And that is exactly the Sean that we read about on the website. And thank you so much for sharing that. When Sean told you he was gay, what was it like for both of you? And I understand he told you that if he would understand if you no longer loved him because he was
right.
gay. What was that like?
I knew Sean was gay since he was very young, probably 5. For me it didn't make a difference. So, I figured when he's ready to bring it up, then that's fine. When he did come out for some reason, or he did think that, he was still worried that his family would not be there for him, even though he knew differently. But yes, he did. He actually wrote me a note, and he told me later on. He said that he would understand if I didn't want to love him anymore, and if I didn't want to be part of his life. And I told him that there was nothing that he could ever do to make me stop loving him.
Elke, my son was born in 1987. He's the age of Sean, and I identify so much with the stories you've told about Sean helping the underdog, the shy kids, the kids nobody would talk to. Would you tell a little about that? You mentioned him bringing kids home, but it sounds as if he was so good at making connections.
I'll tell you, there's so much about my son that I found out after his murder that I didn't know. He had friends in the gay community, in the straight community, in the black community, in the Latino community. He was there for anybody that needed him, that was discriminated against for being different. And he stood up for them, and he stand up for the people, because he did not believe in violence. He believed that, people can, that there are ways that you can address any issue, and you can embrace diversity rather than fight it.
You mentioned that Sean did not believe in violence. I know you've told this story many, many times, but for our Kansas City audience, could you tell about that terrible time in May 2007 when you got the phone call?
Sure. Well, May 16th, 2007 will be in my life changed forever. As a mother, you dread to receive a phone call in the middle of the night. I got that phone call at 4:30 in the morning. It was the Greenville Hospital System in Greenville, and they told me that my son Sean was in the hospital. And they wouldn't tell me anything else. They just told me, you need to get here fast. Well, not knowing what had happened, where he was, until I got to the hospital. Once I got there, Sean was already on life support. He was laying on this cold bed, and he felt cold. And, I remember walking up to him, and I'm telling him that his mama was there. that, and I asked God to please take me instead of him. He has a life. He has so much to give. He has so much to do. But as you and I both know, that doesn't work that way. They did, end up putting a shunt in his brain to relieve the pressure. And I found out as the day was going on that the reason my son was lying there in the neuro ICU, passing away, was because somebody hit him so hard or punched him so hard in the face that it broke his facial bones and it separated the brain from the brainstem. And then he left my son there, lying on the floor, got into his car, and left. 15 minutes later, he left a phone message on one of Sean's friend's phone saying, "You tell your faggot friend when he wakes up, he owes me $500 for breaking my hand on his face." Stephen Andrew Muller turned himself in 2 days later. He was the young man that murdered my son.
Sean's website is seanslastwish.org. What was his wish? I understand that at the time he was in the hospital, he had a wish. What was that?
His wish was that people could walk down the street and be who they are. If they wanted to hold hands, that they can hold hands. If they wanted to embrace each other, that they can embrace each other. And if they wanted to get married, they should be able to get married. That goes for any group of people, but in particular, of course, the LGBT community, because they're the ones that are currently being compressed the most with all the laws against them. I mean, when you're talking about not having 1,134 rights simply because you can't get married, I mean, what's wrong with this picture? Let's talk about for just a minute about the justice, or the lack thereof, in Sean's case, okay? Sean's case was initially charged with murder, but he was plea bargained down to involuntary manslaughter, okay, which in South Carolina is 0 to 5 years in jail. The judge, when he sentenced him to a 5-year suspended sentence to 3 years. He gave him credit for the time that he served in county lockup, and Stephen Andrew Muller only spent 359 days in prison for the murder of my son. There seemed to be no witnesses to the crime. However, later on I found a statement from a witness that clearly saw what happened, but he was never brought in, to talk about it. And one of the things that, it was in 2007, we were preparing for a major election, and people wanted me to shut up, and people wanted Sean's case to go away, okay? And the way they did that is by saying, well, you know what, we investigated this, and, it really had nothing to do with the fact that Sean was gay. It was just an accident. It was a bar brawl. Sean never had a chance. The guy hit him after he gave him a cigarette. He was walking away. The guy hit him. So, they were making up this picture, and they took the gay part out of it so they could get away from the hate crime discussion, because if you remember, in April of 2007, President Bush declined to sign the hate crime bill into law. If he would have signed that bill in 2007, Sean's murder would have been prosecuted much differently.